How are we doing there, boys and girls? Manthieus here. Welcome back to another video. So it's now officially 2025. We're getting back into playing some World of Warcraft, and it's quite obvious to me that we're going to get a PTR dropping for 11.1 very soon. We've started to see some data mine information. Blizzard have actually released some patch notes as well. My dogs decided to say hello this morning. These have come out a little bit before Christmas, but we haven't actually had a testable, playable version of the PTR yet for the Undermine patch. But there is some stuff we can start to sort of guess. And what I want to talk about a little bit today is now is a really good time to be buying up some materials if you need them. Now, what you choose to buy and why you choose to buy it is going to be a little bit dependent on you. But I want to talk about a handful of items today, showcase you what I've bought a little bit of, because people are always going to ask that question, well, what have you bought and why have you bought it? And I will go through in a little bit of detail that today. So let's start off with then. For starters, it is currently, as of recording this video, Friday the 3rd of January. My guess is we'll get the PTR next week. So the PTR is going to come out in a couple of days. And what traditionally happens when the PTR launches is that the price of materials start to go up. And the reason for this is that people start thinking, speculating, call it what you wish. People start looking forward to what's happening in the next patch, and they start to maybe buy some materials up so that they've got some, or buy some even with the mindset to sell them back on later if demand kicks in and rises their price. But usually what tends to happen is the very second we get a PTR, things start to go up. So this leads me to my first point, that I think we're probably at what is referred to as the dip. I think we're probably about the cheapest price we're going to get on a bunch of materials. And if you use a website like the Undermine Exchange, you can start to sort of dive into this in a little bit more detail. What I'm looking at today is going to be from the reference of EU. The concept is exactly the same. If you play over on NA, I would imagine that things are very similar over there at this point. But you can look at some of the daily history graphs of certain items, and you can sort of see the trend over the last couple of months with the expansion launching, over the festive period. There was a bit of a spike, clearly, at one point in certain things when the season actually kicked off. But we're pretty much at the bottom of the bottom in terms of prices right now, and I suspect it can't go down much further. Short term anyway. Long term, obviously, we know all materials end up at zero eventually, or nearly anyway. But short term, I would say materials are probably at a pretty cheap price now. Crushed gemstones is one that I've taken a little bit of a look at, and I've purchased some of these. Crushed gemstones for the purpose of the fact that a lot of my characters are jewel crafters. You may notice I focused on quality 2. I've actually chosen to buy up a bunch of crushed gemstones at quality 2 simply because my concentration crafters go through a whole bunch of this. Every time they craft a gem, they make some crushed gemstones. They use 30, I think it is, crushed gemstones. And I'm using quality 2s with concentration to make quality 3s. My theory with this is that I want maybe a month and a half worth of stock of crushed gemstones now, because I think it's pretty cheap. Crushed gemstones are one of those materials where it requires some processing to make it. It's not something that can just be farmed or botted in that regard. It can't just be farmed up out the ground. You have to actually prospect ore, or you have to crush other gems to get it. And so that processing is a time-consuming system. People have lots of time at the moment because there's not a lot going on in the game. But my theory with this, at least, is that when there is a lot going on in the game, when they release a new patch, when 11.1 launches, there's a good chance that people will be far more interested in playing the new zone, doing the new things, chasing the new rewards, than they will be standing there prospecting, crushing gems, whatever. This means that there is likely to be a bit of an increase in demand. And my hope is at least that the price of this might rise a little. And even if it doesn't, this is a crucial thing. Even if my speculation on any of these prices, even if none of the prices go up, I have a backup plan. I always try and keep a backup plan with this stuff. The backup plan is that I can use it in my own crafting professions. So crushed gemstones, I've bought a bunch of this. If we take a little bit of a look, I'll give you a bit of an overview of what it is I've purchased. I spent a few million gold a couple of days ago. Crushed gemstones, I bought a bunch of this. I've bought a bunch of this, so much so that if I didn't sell any of it, I could probably use most of it myself across a bunch of my characters. I might have bought a little bit too much, but I equally think that it's very, very cheap at the moment, and so I don't mind too much. Another one that will jump out on the list is clearly Storm Dust, and my logic here is the same. Storm Dust is something that is used en masse by enchanters. There's a lot of concentration crafters out there at the moment, but I equally think that because it requires you to do some sort of processing, that it's going to be readily available now and has a chance to go up in price, especially if we start seeing any new enchants popping up. Let's look at some of the other things then. Null Stones. Null Stones, although these are a farmable item, they are the rarer, more farmable item. And I think most herbalists and miners now have probably had enough time to get good at their profession and are probably picking up Null Stones at a relatively consistent rate. I think I used Null Stone as I think we got some data here on Null Stones, yeah. So we look at Null Stones real fast. I think they've probably nearly bottomed out in terms of price. Obviously, we are nowhere near the dizzy days of like 5,000 gold a piece for Null Stones when they were super duper mega rare. But I think at this moment in time, they're very, very, very cheap. There is, yes, the chance they can go down a little bit more, but there's also a chance that with a big demand for crafted goods in Season 2, they might rise a little bit, and having a stock of them seems like a sensible thing for me. I did notice, clearly there were some other people that also are thinking, because when you look at the quantity of Null Stones that were appearing on the market, they were steadily rising in price, and then they seemingly just sort of stopped. I don't know whether this was the point, December the 3rd, I'm not sure if that's when a lot of people decided that, you know what, they were done with their farming. Farming wasn't lucrative enough for them anymore. People will continue to farm as long as they can make 10, 20, 30,000 gold an hour, but maybe once the price for your hour's worth of time gets too low, people start giving up, and that might have been one of the cause of why a huge amount of Null Stones started to disappear quite quickly. A lot of people may have stopped producing them. Or, who knows, there could have been a ban wave or something. We don't necessarily get all of this information. But what I've started to notice is that they're quite low in supply. They're pretty cheap in price. It felt relatively safe for me to pick up a bunch of these. At least enough that I know that I can craft them into alloys or something later on. No issues there. So what else have I been purchasing? Crystallized augment runes. These are pretty straightforward, pretty easy to understand. Augment runes are something that is in big demand when new raid launches. Everybody likes to have a few of these on hand to boost their main stat for a while. And at the end of a season, they tend to get pretty cheap because people don't really need them. And they are slowly but surely being created via a few different sources right now, but at least the way I get most of my augment runes is via patron orders. People throw them up on the auction house in 1s or 2s or 3s or something, but I bought up some of these just so that I've got some. This is probably more of a flip. This is my guesstimation on I will probably sell these back out when the demand kicks in and the supply starts to dwindle, but it's a guess. Everything at this point in time is still very much in the category of guesswork. We're trying to see what happens in the future, use some past experiences to try and pave the way, and we'll see what happens. Bismuth at Q3. Now we'll get into some of the quality 3 materials. Bismuth at quality 3, just because it's used by flipping everything. Engineers need it en masse. Jewel crafters need a bunch of it. Blacksmiths need a bunch of it. Bismuth is used by a bunch of different professions, and considering it is a quality 3 material all the same, my theory with this is that they're also... I feel a lot of farmers have given up. I think the gold per hour has got so low that a huge amount of them have just given up. Whether they have moved on to do other things, whether Classic Fresh coming out had something to do with it, maybe, possibly, I'm not entirely sure, but bismuth is another one where it's sort of, it's slowly declined in price, but the quantity actually, interestingly, on the quality 3 bismuth has been a bit spiky. It's not really gone up, it's not really gone down all that much. It's gone up a little bit in quantity recently, but that sort of led me to believe that maybe it's a good time to buy some of this up, have some of it in the bank. So let's say, you know, let's guess it goes up by 20, 30 gold. It means I have a cheaper crafting cost, or I can just sell it back out to those who want it. A couple of herbs. I didn't buy many of the herbs. Mostly this is only because I am not that big on anything that uses herbs, whether that be alchemy or inscription, but I did think that some of the rarer, more annoying herbs to get, Aratha's Spear and Lurdrop, it was worth buying a little bit of that, put it in the bank for the same reason once again. It's when the demand for these materials actually kicks in, supplies can dry up quite quickly, and if you've got some that you can just quickly put on the auction house, not huge amounts, 10,000 is not a huge, massive amount. You can either sell it or I can use it in some potions or flasks and make some gold off it that way. So this is sort of to finish off this video. That's really the overall concept with this. A lot of the stuff that I purchase, I want to have a backup plan. Rarely do I buy something in just the thought that it might get more expensive in the future, because that's like flipping a coin. Sometimes it goes your way, sometimes it doesn't. But this is also why I spread out. I don't just put all of my gold and I don't just put all of my effort into one thing. I think here there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different items I've purchased. Now, if 1 or 2 of those go up in value, I can sell those, make a little bit of a profit on those, or I can use those in my crafting professions to get better crafting prices. If a couple of them go up and a couple of them go down, the worst case scenario for me is I break even. But I haven't spent all of my gold. This is a big important thing, right? I only ever try and spend as much gold as I'm technically willing to lose. If you have 1 million gold, spend 100,000, spend 200,000. Don't spend all of your gold. If you have 10 million, you can spend 1 million, 2 million gold. If you've got 100 million, you can spend more, but only spend a small percentage of your gold. Don't be emotionally attached to it. One thing I see all too frequently is that people spend 80-90% of all of their gold on one thing, and then they get really panicky. They get itchy. They're desperate to sell it, and this is what causes people to panic sell, or worse still, sell early. Often you'll find that somebody is so emotionally attached to getting that gold back, because it's such a high percentage of all the gold that they have, that they try and sell it the second they think they might get at least a penny profit from it, because they're nervous they're going to lose it all. Don't get too emotionally attached. Only spend as much on materials ahead of time as you're willing to lose, right? If I put all of these in the war bank and completely forgot to use any of them, sure, it'd be a bad day in the office, but it wouldn't cripple me. I'd still have plenty of gold to do other things in the game. So just be cautious if you do any of this, but the TLDR is that I think now's a really good time to buy up some materials, and as long as you can use them, you'll be good. So take that as you wish, boys and girls. Please, please, please don't go out and just buy exactly the same as me for just to copy me. That's usually a terrible idea. But of course, I know that there will be some people that do that anyway. Anyway, I'll leave it there for today, boys and girls. I feel like I'm rambling at this point. Give the video a like if you enjoyed it. Consider subscribing if you're new around here, and I'll catch you all next time. Peace.